Lola is a waitress on a giant cruise liner. One night, after the restaurant closed, she found an expensive watch on the floor. She announced it on the cruiser's radio, and 3 people showed up to claim it. Roger showed Lola the tan line on his wrist and asked her to give him the watch back. Mary said she remembered dropping the watch near the entrance of the restaurant and wants it back. Susie kept asking if the watch was okay and if it was working. Lola decided that the watch belonged to Susie. Why? You've got 10 seconds. Roger's tan line on his wrist is too small compared to the watch Lola found. And if Mary remembered where she dropped the watch, why didn't she pick it up? Susie knows how expensive her watch is, and she was worried it broke. Jenna and Michael were out partying on Halloween night. Michael told Jenna she wouldn't dare to go to a 120-year-old abandoned castle on the other side of town. Rumor had it that a mad scientist used to live there. Without a second thought, Jenna started walking. She reached the house at 3 a.m. and the door was open. When she walked in, the crazy scientist showed up and told her, "I've got a riddle for you. If you answer it correctly, you're free to go. If not, I get to do my scientific experiments on you. A sphere has 3, a circle has 2, and a point has 0. What is it?" You've got 9 seconds to find out. Dimensions. Michael left his work and walked into the dark parking lot in the basement to get his car. When he approached his vehicle, he saw a 4-pin lock on his door. He kept looking at it when his boss showed up. He told Michael, "I want to see if you're smart enough to get a promotion. You only get 1 try. If you figure the code, tomorrow you'll move to the executive's office." His boss gave Michael a piece of paper that read, "Which was the latest passing year that was the same upside down?" Michael started thinking of all the years that passed, and the next day he got the promotion. You have 8 seconds. Think fast. It's 1961. Susie arrived at the dance studio for her rehearsal when she found her instructor unconscious on the floor. Next to him there was a broken vase. Someone must have hit him on the head. Susie called Detective Allen at the scene, and he was suspecting 3 people who entered the studio that day. William, another instructor, said he had an emergency private class with a celebrity and left before anyone showed up at the studio. Mason, a professional dancer, said he took the week off and dropped by today to give the keys back to the dance instructor because he forgot them in his bag when he left the day before. Sally, a dancer, said she had class today, but when she showed up, she didn't see anyone through the window and assumed the studio was closed. Detective Allen knew exactly who was lying. You've got 7 seconds. It was Sally. Her fingers are covered in bandages and cuts. They must have happened when she broke the vase. Lucy was walking back home from the restaurant. She was talking on the phone to her sister and took a shortcut through a creepy park. Suddenly, someone came behind her and snatched her handbag from her shoulder. She tried to chase them, but it was too dark. She only saw a figure going into the cinema. Lucy followed them there, and when she went in, she only saw 3 girls standing there and questioned them. The first girl said she just got there, and she's waiting for her friend to arrive. She said she's holding a big bag to sneak some food into the theater. The second girl said she missed the movie because she has a broken leg and it took her a while to get all the way to the cinema, so she's waiting for the next viewing. The third girl said she came back from her friend's house and wanted to see what movies are playing. Lucy took a good look at them and knew exactly who was lying. You've got 6 seconds. It was the girl with the broken leg. Her left leg is broken, and instead of holding the crutch on the left to support her weight, she has it on the right side. Alex was at the park, snapping photos of trees and flowers for a photography competition. When he finished, he placed his camera on the bench and tried to disassemble his equipment to head back to his car. Suddenly, he heard someone running, and his camera was gone. He saw the person going inside a blue car. Alex got the rest of his stuff and followed the robber. He then saw the car parked outside a restaurant. He walked in and saw 3 people sitting down. Can you guess which of them is the robber? You have 5 seconds. It's the one on the right looking at the menu. The others are eating. They've been there for a while. Sarah and Michelle went to explore an abandoned castle. When they walked in, the door shut behind them and the lights went on. In front of them, 3 doors appeared. They must pick the right one to make it out alive. Behind the first door, there's a hungry crocodile that hasn't eaten in 2.5 years. Behind the second door, there's lava from a volcano that erupted 2 weeks ago. And behind the third door, there's a massive seawater pool with a whale shark you must swim through. You have 4 seconds to decide. Crocodiles can go without food for 3 years, and lava can remain hot when it's well insulated for months. The best option is the whale shark. Even though it's a shark, we humans are indifferent to them. Tori was the lead actress in a movie. They were filming on a deserted island to make sure nobody was around to interrupt the scenes. The day before the shooting, Tori was found unconscious in her room, and the crew member called Detective Martin on the case. He interviewed 4 suspects. The producer said he'd be scouting the island to find a new location with a lake, and he didn't talk to anyone all day. The writer said he had been making some adjustments to the scripts in his trailer. The camera operator said he was testing his filming equipment when a stranger approached him for directions. He ran off to help them. The director was sitting on the beach, writing down notes about small details he wanted to add to the movie. Detective Martin figured it out in 3 seconds. Can you? It was the camera operator. Hey, this was a deserted island. Nobody was there needing help. Anna is a vegetarian restaurant owner. The day she opened the new restaurant, she invited her family to celebrate. Her sister came first, but found Anna unconscious on her office floor. She immediately called the police, and they questioned everyone that entered Anna's restaurant that day. The electrician said he came in for some final checks to make sure everything works. The cleaner said he came in for his shift, but Anna was okay before he left. The chef said he had been sharpening his knives for the meat carvery station. The police arrested the chef. Why? Here are your 3 seconds. This was a vegetarian restaurant. There's no meat carvery station. Jenny, a famous singer, went abroad for her first concert. She checked into a hotel and went to perform for her next show. When she returned to her room, she realized all her jewelry was gone, and she called the police. Detectives checked the cameras and saw that nobody left the hotel that night. The person who took them was still inside. There were only 3 people at the hotel. Michael said he couldn't sleep and spent the entire night in the lounge reading. Jason, the manager, said he spent the night in the back office watching TV because it was quiet. Margaret said she went to the hotel's pool to swim alone. The police knew who was lying. You've got 2 seconds. It's Margaret. Hotel pools are closed tonight for maintenance. Jason and his wife are millionaires. They have 3 sons and 2 daughters. All kids were going on a camping trip together, and the couple will have the weekend for themselves to relax. When they woke up the next day, all their money was taken from their safe, and they called the police. When the officers showed up, they interviewed the 3 people who were in the house that morning. The butler said he was cleaning the car after driving the kids to the camping site. The chef said he was busy preparing a huge breakfast for the family. The cleaner said he finished cleaning quickly that day and left early. The police figured out who was lying in 1 second. Can you? It was the chef. Since the kids were gone, he couldn't have been cooking breakfast for the family. Riddle number 1. Who is guilty? Sherlock Holmes was working on a tricky case. One day he vanished. The only thing John Watson found on his desk was an encrypted note. It looked like this: D+1, L+1, H+1, K+1, X+1. He knew Sherlock had 3 suspects: David, Susan, and Emily. Who was behind the disappearance of the famous detective? John Watson cracked the code. D+1 equals E, L+1 equals M, and so on. Emily knew where Sherlock was. 2. Generous grandfather. Jason and his grandfather were very close. They spent a lot of time together. Their favorite entertainment was to crack detective riddles. Unfortunately, the elderly man passed away unexpectedly. His lawyer informed the relatives that the grandfather had hidden all his money, and he was a wealthy man. The one who would find it would get all the inheritance. Jason realized the grandfather wanted him to get everything. He ran to his office and soon found out where to look for the money. Can you figure it out? There's a cross on the picture with an apple tree that's hanging on the wall. Jason has to look for the money there. 3. The second riddle. When Jason reached the tree, he found a small box. Inside there was a note with a rebus puzzle. After looking at it for a while, the guy darted off. Where did he run? The rebus says back door. That's where Jason headed. There, under the stairs, he found another box with a key to a bank safe deposit box inside. 4. East and West. The king's 2 most trusted bodyguards created a method of keeping their boss safe. With the monarch between them, they were going to stand looking in the opposite directions. One would face the west and the other the east. At the same time, without using any reflective surfaces, they would both see the king clearly. How would they do it? They would be facing each other. 5. Attacked neighbor. Detective Oliver Norton was leaving for work in the morning when he saw a man running out of his neighbor's house. He stopped the guy, who said his name was Paul. He came to visit his colleague about 30 minutes ago and saw him fighting with a man. The door was locked and Paul couldn't get inside to help. While he was trying to find the way to enter the house, the criminal left. Paul entered and saw his colleague lying on the kitchen floor, unconscious. Oliver and Paul came into the house. Nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary, but after looking around the kitchen, the detective arrested the man. Why? Paul was the one to attack Oliver's neighbor. If his words had been true, fried eggs would have been burned after 30 minutes of cooking. 6. Diving disaster. You're a scuba diver who's exploring the seafloor on your own. After visiting one cave after another, you find out you've lost your way. You start panicking because you have barely enough oxygen to make it back to the surface. Suddenly, you see the cave you're in has 3 exits, but one of them is guarded by 3 giant jellyfish, the second by electric eels, and in the third opening, there are huge whale sharks. Which passage should you opt for? Choose the exit guarded by whale sharks. They get their food by filtering water and are totally harmless to people. 7. Stolen documents. At 11 a.m., Liam got a call from his friend, the owner of a law firm. The man was in distress. A very important document had disappeared from his office. It had been on the desk the evening before, but nowhere to be found in the morning. Liam immediately went there to question the employees. In no time, he had 3 suspects. Elijah said he had spent the previous evening at the movies. Mason had taken his girlfriend to dinner, and Evelyn had visited an art gallery. It didn't take Liam long to understand who was lying. It was Elijah. His ticket wasn't torn. 8. Real or fake? Kevin decided to visit his elderly aunt he hadn't seen for several months. But when he got to her house, he saw 2 men wearing construction worker uniforms. They were moving out some furniture. What are you doing here?" Kevin asked. "Miss Saunders hired us to help her get rid of old furniture. We're from Pick and Carry Transport Company," one of the men answered. He sounded sincere, but Kevin felt there was something wrong about the whole situation. Suddenly, he realized the men were thieves. How did he understand it? There was no company van near the aunt's house, just a dark car with tinted windows. Plus, why were the men wearing construction worker uniforms if they were movers? 9. Anxious wife. Ryan got into a car accident. He was badly injured and lost his memory. The man was rushed to a hospital. When he came around in his room, he saw 3 young women near his bed. The doctor informed them Ryan had to stay there for at least a week. Unfortunately, the poor man couldn't remember who the women were. Each of them claimed to be his wife. "Sweetheart, but what if you never remember me?" the woman on the left was crying. "Honey, I'm so worried. Let's go home and I'll take care of you," the one in the middle exclaimed. The girl on the right was furious. "They're trying to steal you from me. Let's leave this place right away." Which lady is the man's wife? The woman on the left was crying. She's the only one who's worried. The other 2 want to take Ryan away from the hospital, but he's injured and needs medical care. 10. Gas station accident. Brian was driving home late in the evening when he noticed he was running out of gas. He stopped by at a gas station to fill the gas tank and buy some snacks. When he came up to the employee to pay, she told him $5.05. Brian paid, went outside, and called the police to report an emergency. Why? The cash register showed $18.35, but the cashier said $5.05, which looks like SOS. 11. Trapped in a well. Eric was a famous detective. Once he was investigating a case and found some crucial evidence. The next morning, he woke up in a well. It was old, deep, but luckily not filled with water. On the flip side, there was no way he could get out to the surface. Suddenly, Eric saw his main suspect's face at the top of the well. "You won't live long enough to rat me out," the man shouted. And then the detective felt soil falling on his head. The criminal was going to bury him alive. But in an hour, Eric was already out of the well and running away. How did he manage to get out? The detective started to shake off and tamp down the soil that was falling into the well. He was getting closer and closer to the surface until he managed to jump out and run away. 12. Winter escape. Mark and Liza had been dating for 2 years. One day, the guy came to his girlfriend's house. He was going to propose to her. But when he made it there, he found Liza with another man. Mark was furious. The other guy got scared and rushed out of the house. Liza was shouting it was his brother, but Mark knew better. Unfortunately, he hadn't seen the guy's face clearly. When he ran outside, he saw 3 men. Which one is Liza's lover? It's the guy on the left. It's freezing outside, and the other 2 guys have red cheeks and noses. But the third guy's face is pale because he just left a warm house. 13. A bus driver. A bus driver is heading down the road from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. It's been a long day and he's worn out. He yawns several times and ignores a stop sign. A police car is passing by right at this moment. The officers inside see the driver turning the wrong way onto a one-way street, but they don't arrest him. Why? The man's walking, not driving a bus. 14. A mysterious man. A man and a woman are driving along a road at breakneck speed. Suddenly, the man pulls the car over. He tells the woman he'll be right back and sprints into a large building. The car doors are locked, all the windows are up. But when the man returns, he finds the woman unconscious. There's also a stranger in the car with her. Surprisingly, instead of pulling him out of the car, the man hugs him. Who is the stranger and how did he enter the car? The woman was in labor, and the man was driving her to a hospital. By the time he returned with a doctor, the woman had already given birth and passed out from exhaustion. The stranger in the car was the man's son. Well, that's a happy ending. Uh-oh, Allie was missing for days when her husband Orson called the police to report it. Detective Wells arrived at the scene and found her purse buried in the garden. Inside, there was a note that read, "It's a sign, you're mine. I redesign your new life." The police had 3 suspects with unusual names: Orson, her husband, Ryan, her best friend, and Atlas, her brother. Who took Allie? It was Ryan. Almost all the words in the note rhyme with his name. While driving in a storm, John saw 3 people standing in the rain at the bus stop, but he only had 1 seat available in his car. Who gets the ride? His childhood friend, an old lady that looks like she's freezing, or his wife? John asked his childhood friend to drive the old lady to the hospital and then take the car back to his house, and John himself will wait for the bus with his wife. Mark is locked in a 30-foot-tall cell with an earthen floor and a window near the ceiling. There's nothing else in his room but a shovel and a bed. The entrance is blocked with concrete. How can he get out? Mark can shovel the soil to the wall underneath the window and climb out. Detective Jones was called one day by Border Control about a suspicious pickup truck. Every day, the vehicle went back and forth between 2 countries with a large sack in the back of its truck bed. When the detective opened the sack, it was filled with sand. What was the driver smuggling? Trucks. A geography teacher vanished on the first day of school. When the police arrived, they suspected 4 people who claimed to have alibis. The landscaper was mowing the front lawn. The English teacher was giving students a surprise test. The principal was preparing for his welcoming speech, and the coach was meeting new students who wanted to join the football team. Who was lying? The English teacher, of course! Students don't get surprise tests on the first day. Well, maybe not at this school. A crazy scientist took 10 people into his lab to check their intelligence. He gave everyone 2 pills and a glass of water. He told them, one pill is a placebo and the other is poison. Whichever you take, I'll take. But somehow everyone ended up unconscious after the trial except for the scientist. How did he do it? Both pills were placebo. The poison was in the water. Shane and Mia went to Japan for their honeymoon. Only Shane came back, and Mia's family called the best detective in town. What should be the detective's first move? Inspect Shane's suitcase. Inspect Shane's house. Call the travel agency Shane and Mia used. Call the agency to see how many return tickets Shane had booked. He's a suspect, and he shouldn't know the police are investigating him to avoid losing the evidence. Someone knocked on Amy's hotel room door. When she opened it, she saw a mysterious man. He apologized and said he'd mistaken Amy's room for his. When he left, Amy called the police. Why? Nobody knocks on the door of their own room. This is a technique used by people who want to break into someone's home. A worker was found unconscious near the entrance of an abandoned building. He has no memory of what happened, but seems to have fallen from the building. Detective Marks is assigned to this case, and he must figure out whether the worker fell or was pushed. He goes to the first floor, opens the window, and throws out a small rock. He does the same on the second floor and all the way to the top. When the detective comes back down, he's sure the worker was pushed. How does he know? He had to open windows on all floors to throw out rocks. This was an abandoned building, and someone closed the window right after pushing the worker. James ordered a coffee from his local bakery, put in some sugar, but then noticed a fly in his cup. He told the staff member, and they took back the coffee and brought him a new one. But when he got a sip, he got angry. Why? His new coffee was already sweetened. The staff member only removed the fly. Tom was walking in a snowy park at 10 p.m. when he got attacked from behind. He didn't see who knocked him out, and he immediately went to the police. The detectives questioned 4 suspects. Adam said he was at a suit fitting for his dinner later. Daniel said he was hosting a party at his place. Susan said she was working out before going to work. And Luke said he went to the park to get some cool photos of flying birds. One of them is lying. Who? It's Luke. It's next to impossible to see birds at night in winter. Right before the final soccer match, the team's goalkeeper went missing. The police arrived and they had 3 suspects from the rival team. Mike said he was signing autographs for his friends. Jake said he had broken his ankle and he was getting a massage. John was training at the gym before the match. The police immediately knew who did it. It was Jake. You don't get a massage when you break your ankle. A doctor walked into an unconscious patient's ward. There he saw a nurse buttoning up her shirt. As soon as she noticed him, she exclaimed, "It's not what you think." The nurse isn't lying, but why was her shirt unbuttoned in the first place? She got locked out of the changing room and knew that the patient was unconscious, so she went to his ward to change into her uniform. Yeah, I believe her. A group of 6 friends decided to check out an abandoned house in their neighborhood. When they arrived, Mark, one of the group, warned his friends not to go in. But all of them ignored him and walked in anyway. Mark stayed outside, but his friends never came out. What did he see that stopped him from going into the house? There were footprints going in, but none coming out. Detective Stevenson is taken by some of his mean supervisors who want to test his intelligence. They put him in a room with 2 doors. One leads to freedom, while the other opens onto a bottomless pit. There are 2 guards, either responsible for one door. One of them always tells the truth, while the other always lies. Stevenson doesn't know who's the honest one, and he can only ask one question to one of them. What should the question be to save his life? If I ask the security guard next to you which door leads to freedom, what will he say? The honest guard will say that the liar will point to the dangerous door. The liar will point to that one too. No matter who Stevenson asks, he should pick the door neither of them will point at. Melissa is walking down a dark alley when she notices a dark figure following her. She walks into a restaurant and sits at a table. The mysterious figure does the same. Then she yawns and immediately knows she's got a stalker. How? When she looked up, the mysterious figure was also yawning. It means they had been watching her. The director of a large company was found unconscious in his office. The police showed up, saw the messy office, and realized that a fight had gone down. They went to his secretary and asked to see the list of visitors that day. Immediately, they knew who did it. How? The last visitor was the culprit. During the fight, the wall clock also stopped because it got hit. It showed the exact time the last appointment took place. Sarah wanted to get some money from her brother for a house. She couldn't tell him the truth and asked him for an expensive gift. After a week, her brother gave her a glamorous tiara. Then she went to her second brother, asked for money, but he gave her jewelry. Still, she's got both money and jewelry. How is it possible? She asked for a similar jewelry item and sold one of them. Susie went on a dating website and found 3 guys that she liked, all with some very impressive backgrounds. But only one of them is telling the truth. Can you guess which one? Shane said he was an astronaut. He went to Mars and enjoyed a beautiful sunset. Chris said he was a scientist and went to the North Pole. He enjoyed being on floating ice and seeing both Arctic foxes and penguins. Dylan said he was a pilot, and once he flew his helicopter so fast he broke the sound barrier. Shane is telling the truth. The sunset on Mars is blue. There are no penguins in the North Pole, and helicopters can't travel faster than the speed of sound. Oh, and yes, we'll also ignore the fact that no one's been to Mars yet. Susie also thinks Shane has beautiful eyes, so who are we to disrupt this love connection? Guess the weight. Jake was buying veggies for his lunch recipe. He purchased a bag of carrots when a shady man approached him and told him, "Sir, I don't have any money with me, but I really need those carrots. Let's make a deal. If I write your carrots' exact weight on this paper, you'll have to give them to me. If I don't, I'll give you my watch." Jake agreed, thinking there was too small a chance for the stranger to guess the number correctly. The mysterious guy scribbled something on the paper and gave it to Jake. As soon as Jake read it, he handed him the bag of carrots. What did the man write on the paper? Your carrot's exact weight, just like he said he would. Will he win the game? Mark was visiting a new game store in his neighborhood. That day, staff members were giving away free games if the customers answered their questions correctly. Mark got in the queue and waited anxiously to see if he'd get the board game he wanted. When his turn arrived, the staff member said, "What has 6 faces but doesn't wear makeup, has 21 eyes but can't see?" Mark was relieved when he heard the riddle, and as soon as he answered, he got the game. What was his reply? A dice. The indivisible apples. Sam went apple picking with his sister, and on the way back, they met their 4 cousins. There were only 5 apples in the basket, and Sam had to divide them equally between his sister and their cousins. But 1 apple had to remain in the basket that he'd take home. How would he divide the apples? He'd give 4 apples to his 4 cousins, leaving 1 apple in the basket for his sister, and walk home with her. The new retail store. John's friend Susie opened a new retail store, and she came up with a new method to price her stock. A tie cost $15, a belt $20, a beret $25, and a blazer $30. Using this method, how much would a handbag cost? $35. She's charging $5 for each letter you need to spell a clothing item. The apple tree. Simon won the title for being the smartest person in his town. One day, he woke up in an evil scientist's basement. Oh, who would have thought? Who wanted to prove that Simon was cheating at each test. So he broadcasted the event live on social media to prove his point. He said, "All right, Simon, I'll ask you a simple math question. A farmer in California has an apple tree in his backyard and supplies the fruit from the tree to a local grocery store. On Sunday, the store owner called the farmer to see how much fruit he'll deliver on Monday. The farmer knows that the main trunk has 26 branches. Each branch has exactly 15 boughs, each bough 8 twigs, and each twig 1 fruit. How many oranges will the farmer deliver?" Simon immediately gave the correct reply. Can you? "None," said Simon. "Apple trees don't bear oranges." Well. When partying goes wrong. Mason, Jacob, Susie, and Edward were having a party at Edward's place. The next day, Edward was found unconscious, and none of the 3 friends knew what happened to him. When the police showed up, they found a note next to Edward's calendar. It read 3, 4, 9, 10, 11. Immediately, the detective knew who did it. What about you? It was Mason. The note was next to a calendar. Take the first letters, transform them into months, and you get Mason. 3 equals March, 4 equals April, 9 equals September, 10 equals October, 11 equals… which one is that? Where's Mary? Sarah and Jamie were spending the weekend at Mary's house. On Saturday, they went to bed late. And when they woke up the next day, Mary was gone. She left a note on her nightstand that read, "Come find me here, noon-DL." What does the note point to? A city, a famous mountain, a forest, or an island? A city. If you unscramble the letters, it reads London. The right door. Mike was driving for 7 hours on the freeway when his tire blew up. He called for help, and they said it will cost him $200 to fix it. He was angry because he was thirsty, hungry, and didn't have any money. In front of him, still sitting in the car, 3 doors appeared, each with signs above showing where they lead. The first is full of food: burgers, spaghetti, lobsters, and pizza. The second is topped with beverages, from energy drinks to sodas and iced teas. The third door has $1 million in cash. Which door should Mike open first? His car door. Who took the car? Mr. Ronald returned home from his 3-week vacation only to find his car missing. He left 3 of his employees at work to take care of the house, but none of them were there when he returned. To catch them off guard, Mr. Ronald video called each one. Sean said he was on the bus back home after a long night out. George said he was heading to school for his lecture, but he could pop by to help him find his car. Chris said he had just arrived at his hotel room in Italy and had no idea what happened with the vehicle. Right away, Mr. Ronald knew who was lying. It was Chris. The clock behind him showed the exact same time as the one on his phone. He wasn't in Italy. The correct path. Luke was hiking in the mountains for 2 days when he got lost. He came across 2 paths. One leads to a nearby town, and the other one will get him lost forever. There are 2 twin girls there who know which way leads to the town. Luke can only ask them one question, but there's a catch. One of the girls always lies, and the other always tells the truth. And Luke doesn't know which one will be truthful. 25 minutes later, Luke arrived at the nearby town. What did he ask the girls? If I ask your sister for the correct path, which one would she show me? They'll both point in the same direction, which means Luke took the path they didn't point at. Where's he hiding? Jim escaped from prison on Saturday. The police had been patrolling the town he was last seen in until they got a tip. A neighbor saw him entering one of these 3 houses, but he couldn't remember which one. The police took a closer look at the houses and arrested him. How did they find out the correct house? It's the last one on the right. The car is facing the road, a common technique people on the run use to get away without losing time. Where does she live? Mia left her mother's home because they had a big argument. Her mother wanted to know where her daughter was going, but when she got back home from work on Tuesday, Mia was still missing. Mia didn't have a phone, and her mom didn't know where she went. 2 hours later, she found out where she was staying. How? She dialed the last number on the phone and told the person on the other side that they'd won the lottery. She told them they needed their name and address to give them the prize. Which is the correct door? Shane is an archaeologist who snuck into some underground caves in Egypt. When the guards spotted him, they started chasing him. He ran fast and came across, guess what? 3 doors. Behind the first one were 4 aggressive crocodiles. Behind the second was an explosive device that would go off in 5 minutes. And behind the third was a dirty pond filled with bacteria and parasites. Which door should he pick? The second door. But because the guards were coming quickly, he should move the device to the room with the crocodiles and then run away to avoid being caught. The Lost Suitcase. Jenna and Neil got back from their holidays in Hawaii. Upon returning, they discovered that their suitcase never made it into the baggage claim area. It was either lost or taken by somebody. The briefcase had a lock on it. When airport security showed up, they questioned 3 people with some convincing alibis. The steward said he checked the plane and couldn't find any luggage. The captain said the suitcase was probably forgotten in Hawaii, but nobody would open it because it was locked. The airport security guard said he just called the airport in Hawaii, and nobody knew what happened. Immediately, the police arrested the captain. Why? He knew the suitcase was locked, but nobody told him that. The break-in. Susan's apartment was broken into the day before Halloween. When she went home from work and saw the mess, she called the police. The door didn't have any signs of a break-in, just an open window. The detectives questioned 3 of her neighbors. Mrs. Ruth was knitting a pair of gloves for her great-granddaughter. Michael said he was working a 14-hour shift the day before, and he was sleeping all day. Dennis said he had broken his leg and didn't leave his home for 3 weeks. The police immediately knew who was guilty. It was Michael. He was the only one able to climb into a window. Wait a minute, you don't think Granny could do that? You should see her doing burpees.